Good morning, dear students of third year classes. طلاب المرحلة الثالثة. هاي المحاضرة راح تكون المحاضرة الثانية إن شاء الله. Last time we studied and we analyzed Kubla Khan by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. And I think you still remember that from the very beginning of our lectures in romantic poetry, we said that we have two generations of romantic poets. We have the first generation and we have the second generation. The first generation, so far we have studied Wordsworth and Coleridge and also William Blake. Now the second half or the second generation, which are the other three poets, which belong to the second. Sometimes it is called the younger generation because all the poets in this generation were very young when they died. So now we are going to move to this second generation, and let's see how exactly this second generation is similar or different from the first one. So before going to be introduced into the poets in the second generation, let us remind ourselves of the first generation. So here we have the first, which is sometimes even called the older generation because they came in the time which was, let's say, actually Wordsworth and Coleridge and outlived the second generation, which means what? It means that the second generation of the poets, Byron, Keats, Shelley, they were born and dead in the lifetime of Wordsworth and Coleridge. يعني الشعراء الجيل الثاني هم مو بس كانوا أصغر عمرا ولكن هم ولدوا وعاشوا وماتوا في حين كانوا لا يزالون الجيل الأقدم اللي هم وورdsworth وكولوريدج كانوا لا يزالون أحياء. You see, so the first older generation, of course, it has certain characteristics. Let's remind ourselves of these characteristics. Here you see, first one, simple ideals. What does that mean, simple ideals? It means that, for example, the romantic poets, the older romantic poets, they supported ideals like equality, like let's say freedom. They didn't have a lot of philosophy concerning such ideals. They just supported these ideas because they believed that they should be spread in society. These are actually simple. Why they are simple? Why do we call them simple? Because when we look at the younger generation, we are going to see that the younger generation was much more revolutionary. They did not only support such simple ideas like that, for example, society should be free, or that there should be equality, and that's it. They wanted to live in a very revolutionary manner, to the extent that they created revolutions even in religion, even in the, let's say, in the social institute, like for example the institution of marriage. Some of them even denied the importance or the significance of the institution of marriage. So you see that they were more revolutionary. The second generation were more revolutionary than the first one. So that's why we call the ideals of the older generation simple, because they didn't go so far with these ideals. Second, we have reverence for nature. And now we will see that in the second generation we also have reverence of nature. Still, we have romantic poets who are very much interested in the power that nature has, the influence that nature has on man. But for the first, or let's say the older generation, it was more peaceful. It was more, let's say, they were more focused on that. Now in the second generation, we will see that nature has a certain significance and role, but let's say not as powerful as it was in the first one. Number three, they criticized social conventions. Of course, we know that uh, Wordsworth, Coleridge, Blake, they try to criticize society's corruption, the existence of evil, all the, let's say, negative aspects of the industrial society. They criticized them. But when it comes to the second generation, we will see that they actually revolted against these social conventions, not only criticized. يعني اكو خلينا نقول اكو واحد ينتقد العادات الاجتماعية أو التقاليد الموجودة بالمجتمع، أكو واحد لا يثور على هاي التقاليد. فالجيل الأول كانوا ينتقدون، ولكن الجيل الثاني كانوا يثورون، كانوا حتى يحاولون يجسدون هاي الثورة في حياتهم الاجتماعية. Number four, they supported the ideals of freedom and equality of the French Revolution. كانوا جدا متأثرين بالثورة الفرنسية. Actually, the first generation is the generation which is mostly influenced by the ideals of freedom and equality, which were the slogan of the French Revolution. يعني هاي كانت هي عبارة عن شعارات موجودة بالثورة الفرنسية. في حين نشوف أنه يمكن تأثير هاي الثورة شوية اختلف على الجيل الثاني. Number five, they used simple language. So if you remember the poems, although of course for us as readers in the modern times they seem somehow difficult, but they were very simple actually. The language is simple, it expresses the language of the ordinary person. While in the second generation we will see that sometimes the poet's own purpose try to use a sophisticated language, a kind of language which expresses philosophical ideas. It is not a language which can be used by ordinary people, just like in the first generation. So here, as you notice, we are trying to remember the characteristics of the older generation, and we try to compare them to the second generation. Now let's see here, who are the poets, or who were the poets of the second generation. طبعا حسب ما انتم عندكم بالملزمة أكيد انتم شايفين يعني كل شاعر عندكم هسه هي بقوا ثلاثة شعراء. هذول الثلاث شعراء هم يعتبرون من الجيل الثاني. The second generation, the younger generation poets are Byron, Shelley and Keats. طبعا احنا بترتيب الملزمة هو أول واحد Shelley، بعدين Keats هو من ثم Byron. Okay, so we have three poets here who are considered to be the representatives of the second younger generation of the romantic poets. طبعا نفس يعني الكلام اللي قلناه بالمقارنة مع الجيل القديم. Let's see here what are the characteristics. Number one, they were known for their political radicalism. لاحظوا هاي المصطلحات هنا. Here you see that the second generation, they had also some kind of political let's say radical political views. يعني أكو بعض الآراء السياسية خلينا نقول كان أيضا عندهم انتقادات للجانب السياسي، بس كانت شنو خلينا نقول بها تطرف، يعني كانوا متطرفين أكثر من الجيل الأول. Exploration of intense passion. You see, it is not just that, for example, a poet is in love with nature. He's so passionate about nature, for example. Some poets, for example, Byron, he was, we can say, he was not only someone who loves freedom and someone who would like to go in a certain journey alone. No, he was really passionate. He would go into adventures alone. He was adventurous, you see. So everything is taken a step higher or more intense than before. Those poets are really passionate about their ideals. For example, Byron also, I'm giving you examples of what they did. For example, Lord Byron, he believed, for example, in the right cause of the Greece. There was a war between Greek and Turkey, ما أعرف إذا سامعين بيها، هاي الحرب اللي كانت قائمة ما بين اليونان وتركيا. So our poet Byron, because he believed that Greece is the cradle of philosophy، يعني هي مهد الفلسفة، the cradle of sorry, the cradle of democracy، مهد الديمقراطية. So he decided that he's going to travel to Greece, and there he's going to train soldiers and troops in order to fight with the Greek army. And he actually died in Greece, and he was considered a national hero there. So you see, the romantic poets, they were so passionate about their beliefs, their ideals, to the extent that they were willing to die for them. Number 3, emphasis on extreme individualism. So now we have also some kind of extreme emphasis on the individual, the importance of the individual, the importance of what the individual believes or feels, to the extent that even if this individual belief meant going against society and being tortured by society, they were willing to go through that. Number 4, they lived relatively short lives. هسه واحد يقول هاي شنو قابل فد ميزة هاي؟ يعني طبعا هي مو ميزة، ولكن هذا الشيء مستغرب. يعني دائما من نذكر الجيل الثاني دائما يقال أنه الشيء الغريب المشترك بين هذول الشعراء أنهم كلهم عاشوا حياة قصيرة. All of them, they did not exceed their I think late 30s. يعني أقصى شيء يمكن وصلوا له هو أواخر الثلاثينات. They all died young. I don't know actually what's the secret behind that. So our poem, because we are going to just have a brief idea about the poem, I'm not going to start analyzing it, but just to prepare you for our poem. It is entitled Ode to the West Wind, Ode to the West Wind, by Percy Bysshe Shelley. Now, this poem, what do we need to know about this poem before we read it or study it? What is an ode? Notice here the title, an ode, and we are going to see that ode, this word, this term, is going to be repeated once again when we are going to study Keats. You'll see that we have also, when we are going to study Keats poetry, we are going to take an example, Ode to a Nightingale. تلاحظون هاي كلمة ode to the west wind, ode to a nightingale. So what is an ode? An ode is a lyrical poem written in praise for a person, event or thing. هسه واحد يقول لعد يا ليش ما سميناها lyric؟ ليش نسميها ode؟ Lyrical poem that we know, what do we mean by lyric؟ يعني خلينا نقول شنو تعريف الليريك بالبداية؟ Lyrical poem is a poem which has a kind, let's say, of a musicality, simple language. An ode somehow is similar, but the difference is, or what is additional in the ode, is that it is addressed to something or someone. Okay, that's why whenever you see a poem with with the title ode, you are going to see that after that comes to something, an ode to a person or to something. يعني قليل ما تشوفون أو يمكن حتى ما تشوفون إلا نادرا قصيدة يكون عنوانها فقط يعني مثلا an ode وخلص. لا، لازم من ode to something، يعني لازم أكو إشارة إلى شخص أو شيء معين. So what does this mean? It means that an ode is a lyrical poem. It has the characteristics of a lyrical poem, but at the same time the difference is that it is addressed to something, to someone. The poet or the speaker is talking or praising someone or something. Okay, this is what we mean by an ode. Okay, so what else we need to know about the poem? What is the setting of the poem? So before we go deep into the analysis of the poem, let's see what is the setting. And you know, when we speak about the setting, we are talking about time and place. So what is the time in which the poem takes place and what is the place. According to Shelley, the poem was written in the woods يعني بمعنى الغابة أو الأدغال outside Florence, Italy in the autumn of 1819. So what is the place? It is somewhere in a forest in the woods يعني مكان بالطبيعة يعني. Okay. And this place is in Italy. It's a natural landscape in Italy. And what time of the year it is? It is in autumn. You see, because the west wind, لاحظوا هنا الريح الغربية. The west wind, when does the west wind blow? If you have any geographical information, it blows in autumn. It is an autumn wind. يعني هاي الريح الغربية هي الريح اللي تهب في فصل الخريف. You see? So the poet, when he was standing on this spot in the woods, of course, because it is in this time of the year, in autumn, we have this wind coming from the western side. So he felt the blow of this wind, and this inspired him to write. This inspired him to write this poem about the west wind. So here, before we go on reading the poem, we will see that the setting, the place in which the poet was standing, has actually great influence in inspiring him to write this poem. So these are the basic information that you need to know about this poem, which I'm going to analyze and read for you in the next lecture. And I'm going to leave you now with a reading of the poem. So please listen carefully to the pronunciation. Try to read it by yourself also. Look for the words, the meaning of certain words and expressions. And I'm going to give you certain questions about the poem so that you are prepared for it for the next time. Thank you very much for listening. See you next.
O wild west wind, thou breath of autumn's being, thou from whose unseen presence the leaves dead are driven, like ghosts from an enchanter fleeing, yellow and black and pale and hectic red, pestilence-stricken multitudes. O thou, who chariotest to their dark wintry bed the winged seeds, where they lie cold and low, each like a corpse within its grave, until thine azure sister of the spring shall blow her clarion o'er the dreaming earth, and fill, driving sweet buds like flocks to feed in air, with living hues and odours plain and hill. Wild spirit, which art moving everywhere, destroyer and preserver, hear, oh hear, make me thy lyre, even as the forest is. What if my leaves are falling like its own? The tumult of thy mighty harmonies will take from both a deep autumnal tone, sweet though in sadness. Be thou, spirit fierce, my spirit. Be thou me, impetuous one. Drive my dead thoughts over the universe like withered leaves to quicken a new birth. And, by the incantation of this verse, scatter, as from an unextinguished hearth, ashes and sparks, my words among mankind. Be through my lips to an awakened earth the trumpet of a prophecy. O wind, if winter comes, can spring be far behind? Ode to the West Wind.